Remember reading for the first time about Harry climbing aboard the Hogwarts Express, or Lucy going to have tea with Mr. Tumnus in Narnia? There's this sense of comfort and belonging in those fictional places that makes you just want to crawl inside the pages and live there forever. Like, no matter how windy the storm may be outside or how dangerous the world may become, those places are like a safe haven, like a warm hug. So in today's video, what I wanted to do is kind of explore some of those cozy fictional places and just see what we can learn from them about comfort and belonging and beauty, and how we can kind of bring those things into our own homes. So anyway, I thought this was kind of the perfect time of the year to be dipping into this type of video because I don't know about you, but I feel like autumn is sort of the season of turning homeward, where you want to nest and you want to make your space more cozy for the winter that's coming. So there's kind of that like hibernation mode that you go into. So I have made myself a little cup of pumpkin tea in my pumpkin mug. And before I dive into today's video, I just realized that I completely forgot to introduce myself, but my name is Olivia and I'm a writer. I love to create cozy videos on this channel that document my own journey as a writer, but then I also love to make video essays kind of exploring elements of the stories that I love most. So if any of that sounds like your cup of tea, please subscribe to this channel and give this video a thumbs up if you don't mind. That would just help YouTube know that this is a cool video and more people should see it. So all that said, cheers and let's jump in. So when it comes to cultivating a home that's really comforting and cozy, one of the first things I was noticing about all these fictional places is that it's almost impossible to separate the person who lives there from the place they're living in. Let's take Bag End as an example. You can tell a lot about Bilbo, and Frodo for that matter, by looking at Bag End. There's elements of their Bag End's nature throughout the house: roaring fires, comforting armchairs, all the comforts of home. But there's also signs of their Tookish nature as well. There's all those books and maps kind of cluttering up the space that are very representative of their Tookish inclination to go out on adventures in the world. And you can tell, even just by looking at their home, what matters to them. So I think what I learned from that is, whether you mean to or not, your home says a lot about you. And it's really kind of an ever-evolving portrait of your life, your story. And so I think that's the very first tip I would take away from all this, is that your home is really just a place to tell your story. So it should be a place that's full of all the things that you love most in the world. It should be representative of all the different chapters of life you've lived so far, your memories on the wall and the picture frames, and it should be your favorite books on the shelves. I feel like every new apartment or home that I've moved into, I've always kind of had to relearn what my style is. And one of the easiest ways I've done that is just by looking on Pinterest. So I've just got like a board for my house and then different sections in that board for different rooms, and I'll just kind of collect things that catch my eye over time. And then if I go back through and look in that board, I can easily pull out what kinds of things stand out to me and what kind of things I like. So for example, I can tell just based off my Pinterest boards that I really like homes with lots of neutrals and lots of, dark wood furniture and white walls and oil paintings, but I also really like lots of sunlight and lots of florals and pink. If you just look at Pinterest and kind of refine it back to the common threads of things that you really like in homes, then that'll give you kind of a good place to start when it comes to bringing things into your home that feel like you. Frodo was now safe in the last homely house east of the sea. That house was, as Bilbo had long ago reported, a perfect house, whether you like food or sleep or storytelling or singing, or just sitting and thinking best, or a pleasant mixture of them all. Merely to be there was a cure for weariness, fear, and sadness. So this is one of my favorite passages from the Fellowship of the Ring because it so perfectly embodies what I want my home to feel like. From Tolkien's description, it's clear that he imagined Rivendell as kind of like a sanctuary of all things that are good and beautiful and artistic. So even through centuries of war and doom, Rivendell remains this place that keeps history and music and stories alive. So places like this don't just spring up out of nowhere. They're cultivated over time, and it takes a lot of intentionality to do that. So I think one of the common threads that run through all of these fictional places is that they're all very much places that have been designed and cultivated to invite people in. So I think our biggest takeaway for that we can take into our own homes is really thinking through what you want your house to feel like to people who walk into it. And one of the best ways to make your home feel inviting is to think through what you want each space in your house to be used for. So if you want your living room to be a place where people can gather and talk after dinner, then making sure there's enough seating for everybody, making sure there's blankets nearby that people can grab, and making sure maybe that the TV is tucked away and not the focal point of the room. Or if you want to encourage lots of music to be alive in your home, then put the piano out in the living room where people can play it and put a little basket of sheet music next to it. Or if you want your house to feel like it's well suited for reading, then put a little cozy chair next to your bookshelf and make sure there's a blanket there and a place for someone to put a hot cup of tea, you know? So ultimately, if we want our homes to feel like a sanctuary for feasting or storytelling or song, then we need to design our homes in a way that kind of naturally inspires those things to happen. Okay, so for our third tip, let's talk for a minute about minimalism. When I was 17, I happened upon this lovely little book in Powell's bookstore in Portland. It's called The Life-Changing Magic of Tidying Up. So on my road trip up to the Pacific Northwest, I devoured this entire book, and by the time I got home, I was itching to go through my entire room and purge everything. So I went through my books, my clothes. I got rid of probably over half of what I owned, which was not very much. And I think this book had a lot of wisdom and a lot of help for people who tend to hoard or tend to keep things that they know don't quite fit their lifestyle anymore. So I think this was a great phase for me to go through, and I really, really enjoyed everything I learned from this book. But I do feel like the minimalism trend went just a little too far, where it seemed like we almost decluttered all the color and fun out of our lives. And I guess that minimalism can kind of be peaceful at best, but kind of soulless at worst. So we kind of have to strike the right chord in the middle somewhere. And kind of the middle ground I found is in this quote by William Morris, who was an interior designer. And he said, "Have nothing in your home that you do not know to be useful or believe to be beautiful." And I really like that quote for the balance that it strikes between those two of purpose and aesthetic, because it allows for kind of the creature comforts and the maximalism of the Hobbits or Brambly Hedge, but it also allows for kind of that serenity and the peacefulness that you might think of associated with, you know, Rivendell. And if I'm trying to think through all those cozy fantasy places like, you know, Bag End, the Weasleys' cottage in Harry Potter, kind of like the Beaver's hut in Narnia, Brambly Hedge, Wind in the Willows, none of those are particularly minimalistic, so just take note of that. But I do feel like there's this sense of it's cozy, but it's not clutter. It's not unfinished projects or things that they've been hanging on to for 10 plus years, or things that you feel guilty getting rid of and that kind of thing. All the stuff that are in those homes feels very intentional. So anyway, I feel like the minimalism trend is really helpful if you're trying to identify what really does spark joy and what you love. But I really do love that William Morris philosophy of having nothing in your home that you do not know to be useful or believe to be beautiful. Okay, so this next tip I only learned a couple months ago, and when I learned it, I feel like it blew my mind. If you're looking for a really simple place to start when it comes to interior design, this is one of the best interior design books I've ever read. It's called House Rules by Michael Smith. So this book is just a series of 100 tips for home design that you can pretty much apply to any space that you're in. So the biggest takeaway I had from this book was rule number 48, which is trust the homey trinity. It's rugs, drapes, and lighting. And if you have those three things in any room, it'll instantly make it more cozy. So first of all, when it comes to drapes, she suggests in this book that your curtains or your drapes should frame the wall and not the window. So generally they need to be a lot higher and a lot wider than you think that they should be. And secondly, rugs are supposed to do kind of the same thing to the floor. It should be big enough on the floor that you can get off any piece of furniture and walk to another piece of furniture and never touch the actual ground. Kind of like that old game you would play as a kid, like the floor is lava, but you want to make sure that the rug is big enough to kind of protect you from the lava, so to speak. And then the third aspect of the homey trinity she talks about is additional lighting. So this just refers to the fact that you should pretty much never turn on the overhead light if you can help it. And it doesn't have to be lamps. It could be twinkly lights or candles or anything like that, but just the idea of avoiding the overhead light and doing additional sources of lighting throughout the room. She said at least 3 per room. Anyway, so if you are looking for a cozy interior designing book, this is the one to go for. I'm going to link it down below so you can find that if you need it. But I'm going to be rereading this one over and over for the years to come. It just has so many gems in it. Anyway, I hope that helps you as much as it helped me. So one of the things I've been thinking about is when we're encountering these cozy places in literature, we're always experiencing them through description, and those descriptions usually rely on the five senses. So, when we're first entering into any of these fictional places, we're experiencing them through what the characters see and feel and touch and taste. And honestly, one of the easiest tips that you can take into consideration when trying to make your home more cozy is thinking through each of the five senses and what your experience is of those senses in each room. So the easiest one to think of is what you see when you walk into a room, and that can be everything from the way that the furniture is set up, does it kind of welcome you in, or is it kind of facing its back to you, to the lighting in the room. Is it kind of the glare of the overhead light, or is it natural sunlight coming in the room through the windows, or is it soft lamplight or candles burning? Does the room have kind of an overall color scheme to it? Is it visually appealing? It's kind of the easiest of our five senses to work with when it comes to kind of homemaking and designing. The second one's pretty easy too, but just thinking through everything that you smell when you walk into a room. Like, there's very few things that are cozier than walking into a kitchen at dinner time and smelling like a savory soup simmering on the stovetop, or garlic bread roasting in the oven. And for other rooms in the house, this is the perfect time of year to be burning the coziest scents of fall candles, so pumpkin or cinnamon or apple. And if not candles, then you can use, cozy essential oils that you can diffuse into the air. So that's a great way to kind of shape the atmosphere of a room in a really subconscious way. And then third, obviously, you can think through the sounds that you hear in a room. So if you're lucky enough to live in the countryside, you can fling open the windows and let birdsong stream in. So in the evenings when I'm home, I really love this playlist that I made of the soundtrack from the 1990s Little Women and then the original Anne of Green Gables movies. Those songs, I think my mom used to play them every fall when she would be making dinner, and so they just have this kind of nostalgic comfort to them. It just sounds really homey and cozy, so I love playing that when I'm kind of in more of a serene mood. And you can have playlists for all your different kinds of moods, whether it's classical or jazz. My husband and I found this playlist called Kitchen Swagger on Spotify, and that's kind of our go-to background music when we have people over. And when it comes to things that you can touch in a room, think about, are there soft blankets that you can cuddle up with, or pillows, or I found myself really drawn to kind of more natural materials lately. So, if you think of wood or leather or brass or bronze or cotton, linen, there's something special about the feel of more like authentic textures. And then if you think about taste, think about it kind of Hobbit style, like the way that they have pantries or larders that are full of all their favorite foods. This is very Brambly Hedge too, but like the stocked up pantry is kind of a trademark of all cozy fantasy spaces. It kind of conjures up this feeling of hibernation or like stocking up for the winter, that kind of thing. So anyway, I've gotten a little carried away with this tip, but basically just think about the five senses in any of the rooms that you have in your house, what you can see and taste and touch and feel and smell, and how you could use all those things to make that room just a little bit cozier. So when I got my very own place for the very first time, I remember going a little crazy with Hobby Lobby art. I don't know, I wanted the house to look very put together very quickly, and so the easiest solution seemed to be to go to Hobby Lobby and get like a whole bunch of wall art and then just make gallery walls everywhere. But over the years, my taste has changed quite a bit, and I find myself drawn a lot more now to the look of a home that has acquired pieces over time. So I still have a lot of those Hobby Lobby pieces in a gallery wall in our living room, and I really like the way that looks. But for the rest of the home, I've really enjoyed lately finding pieces that I can collect over time that tell more about our story and our experiences and our memories. So, for example, I found some oil paintings of nature landscapes at garage sales that I've really, really loved and paid maybe $10 to $20 for. And last time I traveled to Europe, I made it a goal that every single city we went to, I was going to try to find some sort of painting or sketch from a street artist that was kind of representative of that place that we went to. So this is probably no surprise, but I love thrift stores, yard sales, antique shops, and I love them because you can find things that are really good quality, that will last you for years, that are, handmade and unique, but that are also pretty crazy affordable. Like, you can buy things for a couple dollars at garage sales. And if it's a bigger ticket item, you can pretty much always negotiate on the price and bring it down lower. It's kind of crazy, like once you figure out what you can pay for things at garage sales, it's almost impossible to go to a store and pay full price for them ever again. And when I think about those places like Bag End or the Burrow or Chimney Hill or Brambly Hedge, none of those places have furniture or wall art or whatever it may be that's brand new. Pretty much all of it feels very loved, very lived in, handmade, good quality, that have lasted for years and have this sense of history about them. So the very last thing I wanted to talk about today was kind of like ingredients that you can pretty much add to any space and it'll make it automatically more cozy. And obviously this is not a complete list, so if you want to add any more ideas, feel free to do that in the comments below. But here are some ideas that I thought of. First of all, books, especially classics or vintage looking books, which you can find at yard sales or garage sales. Candles or candle holders, baskets or wicker trays, a vinyl or CD player, tea supplies or other ingredients for cozy drinks, gold frames, oil paintings, maps, perfume bottles, tea kettles or teacups, musical instruments like guitars or pianos, potted plants, bonus points if they are vines that can kind of trail down over a bookshelf, vases with greenery, and last of all, a bouquet of fresh flowers. Alright friends, that is all for today, so I really hope you enjoyed today's video. If you did, it would mean so much to me if you'd give it a thumbs up, subscribe to my channel if you want more bookish content like this. And my question for you today is, if you think back to the coziest place you have ever been, whether it's real or imagined, what was it about that place? Well, first of all, where was it? And secondly, what was it about that place that has stuck with you the most? And try to describe it in as much detail as possible so we can all kind of go there with you. Yeah, let's just make the whole comment section like a chronicle of all the coziest places that ever were. I cannot wait to read that, what you guys come up with. And without any further ado, cheers. I'll see you in the next video. Bye.